The wounded stranger came through Louisa Haskett's gate before sunrise, and the warning in his mouth was more dangerous than the blood on his sleeve. She had been checking the remount string when the dun horse stumbled between the ironwood posts. Dawn had not yet cleared the eastern ridge. The yard lay gray and cold, the corrals full of shifting breath, and the low knock of hooves against packed earth. Joel's single silver-inlaid spur hung from the horn of Louisa's saddle, tied there with rawhide as it had been every working day since his death. The sound it made against the horn was small. The rider's arrival was not. He sat crooked in the saddle, his right arm pressed against his ribs. Blood had darkened the sleeve from shoulder to elbow. His hat shadowed most of his face, but Louisa saw the revolver at his hip and the way his left hand hovered near it. She lifted her rifle. The dun stopped because it had no strength left to argue. The rider raised his head, dark eyes, wind-burned skin. A man accustomed to distance and trouble, though neither gave him authority inside her gate. "Take your hand away from the gun," Louisa said. "I'm not here to rob you. Then you can prove it without touching the weapon." His gaze moved once across the yard, barn, tack room, house, lambing shed beyond the lower corral. He noticed too much for a dying man. "They may be close." "Who?" "Men who don't want me talking." "Drop the gun." He breathed through pain. Then, using his left hand, he drew the revolver by the barrel rather than the grip. He held it out with the handle turned away from her and let it fall into the dirt. The restraint caught her attention. It did not earn trust. Louisa kept the rifle steady. "Now get down," he tried. His left boot cleared the stirrup, but the right side of his body failed when he shifted his weight. He slid hard from the saddle. Louisa reached him before his shoulder struck the ground. His weight drove her back one step. He did not seize her. His left hand struck the dirt and held there, taking what force he could away from her body. For one brief instant she had his uninjured side against her, solid beneath a dust-stiff coat, his breath rough near her temple. Then she lowered him beside the hitching rail. "Easy," she said, because the warning was for both of them. His fist remained closed. Something metallic showed between his fingers. "Open your hand! Don't lose it! Open it!" His fingers unfolded. A small lead seal lay in his palm, its number pressed deep into the metal. A torn strip of waxed canvas remained caught through it. Blood had dried along one edge, though Louisa could not tell whose. "What is that?" "From the payroll pouch." His voice had thinned. "What payroll?" "Northbound Express." "Where is it?" He turned his face toward the lambing shed. "Not here. Not yet." Louisa's grip tightened on the rifle. "Then why are you on my land?" "Because they mean to put it under your floor." The yard seemed to narrow around the words. A missing payroll beneath a widow's building would not merely bring a sheriff. It would bring buyers, creditors, stage men, and every neighbor who found certainty easier than fairness. Ironwood Gate could survive poor grass or a broken fence. It could not survive stolen company money, discovered under Louisa Haskett's floor, after someone else named the place first. "Who means to?" she asked. The stranger swallowed. "Don't let Toll search first." Hoofbeats sounded from the bunkhouse side. Amos Bell appeared with Cal and the third ranch hand behind him, all three pulling on coats over work shirts. Amos saw the blood and reached for the knife at his belt. "Hold," Louisa said. He stopped. "Amos, ride to Juniper Wells. Bring Dr. Pritchard. Tell him gunshot. Right upper arm, heavy blood loss. Cal, take the dun. Do not remove the saddle. Do not open anything." Cal moved toward the horse, keeping well clear of the stranger's dropped revolver. Louisa nodded to the third hand. "Chain the gate after Amos leaves. No one enters without my word." Amos looked from Louisa to the wounded man. "You know him?" "No." "Then what did he bring?" Louisa closed the stranger's fingers over the seal and canvas before Amos could see the number. "A reason to hurry." Amos mounted and rode out. The gate closed behind him with the scrape of chain through iron. Louisa picked up the revolver by the grip, opened the cylinder, and removed the cartridges one by one. She put them in her skirt pocket and slid the unloaded weapon beneath her belt. "Can you stand?" she asked. "With help. You will tell me before you touch me." A trace of surprise passed across his face. "All right." Louisa placed herself at his left side. He used the hitching rail and his own legs first, taking only enough support from her shoulder to rise. Again, he did not grip harder than necessary. Together, they crossed the yard to the tack room. Joel's spur tapped the saddle horn behind them when the bay mare shifted. The stranger heard it. His step faltered, but Louisa blamed the wound. Inside, she put him on the narrow cot beneath the harness pegs. She cut his coat sleeve from wrist to shoulder and found a through wound high in the upper arm. The bullet had entered and left, but the bleeding had not fully stopped. She folded clean cloth and pressed it against the outer wound. Name: Rafael Navarro. Occupation: outrider. Working cowboy when someone pays. Who shot you? A rider on a dark chestnut. Name: didn't see his face. Who is Toll? Rafael's eyes closed, then opened again. Abner Toll. Stage livestock superintendent. Remount contractor. Why would he put an express payroll on my ranch? Spring Road, your water, your remount contract. His breathing shortened. Widow alone. Easy story. Louisa increased pressure on the wound. Where did you hear this? Equipment shed west of Juniper Wells. Last night. Who was there? 2 men. Maybe more outside. Was Toll with them? I heard his name. Heard your lambing shed. Didn't see him open the pouch. The distinction mattered. Even wounded, Raphael would not give her certainty he did not possess. Louisa noted it without rewarding him for it. She searched his saddlebags while Cal watched from the doorway. 1 spare shirt, dried meat, a hoof pick, no payroll, no money beyond a few coins, no second weapon. She placed the saddle beyond Raphael's reach and ordered Cal to leave it untouched. Then she returned to the cot. Raphael's left hand still held the seal and canvas. Give me those. He hesitated. If Toll gets them, he will not. You don't know what men like him can buy, and you do not know what I will. Permit inside my house. Raphael studied her face, as though deciding whether pain had mistaken stubbornness for strength. At last he opened his hand. Louisa took the seal and torn canvas together. She turned the metal toward the window. The number was clear, 714. On the tackroom shelf sat a dented tin cup. Louisa placed both pieces beneath it and set the cup upside down over them. No one touches that shelf, she told Cal. Not even Amos when he returns. Cal nodded. Raphael sank back against the cot. They'll come before the sheriff. Then they will find the gate chained. That won't stop Toll. Louisa looked through the open tackroom door toward the lambing shed, its weathered boards pale in the coming light. No, she said, but it will make him show how badly he wants inside. The payroll was not beneath her floor. The stranger had reached her before the lie. Somewhere beyond Ironwood Gate, men were already moving the box that could ruin her, and the first of them knew her name. Raphael woke with his first question aimed at the lambing shed. Did anyone go near it? Louisa sat beside the tackroom cot with a fresh cloth folded across her lap. Morning had climbed over the eastern ridge, warming the boards and filling the room with the dry smell of leather, dust, and horse liniment. Seal 714 and the torn waxed canvas remained together beneath the overturned tin cup on the shelf. Raphael's unloaded revolver rested under Louisa's belt. Its cartridges were still in her skirt pocket. No one has gone near the shed, she said. Now tell me why you knew where to look before you crossed my gate. His right arm lay wrapped in the cloth. Louisa had pressed against the wound. The bleeding had slowed, but his face had the gray cast of a man who had spent too much strength getting somewhere alive. Equipment shed west of Juniper Wells, he said. Last night, I stopped there because I saw the northbound express wagon changing teams before the proper relay point. How far before? Near a mile, maybe less. You followed it? Far enough to know the change wasn't scheduled. Louisa set the clean cloth aside. Why would that matter to an outrider? Because men who move freight off time usually want the road empty or the record wrong. A useful answer. Not a complete one. What did you see at the shed? Raphael adjusted his left shoulder against the wall, careful not to disturb the injured arm. 2 men inside. A third horse tied behind the building. I couldn't see the rider. Did you see Abner Toll? No. Then do not give me his guilt because you heard his name. I won't. The quick agreement caught her attention more than a protest would have. Raphael continued. The payroll pouch was open on a crate. 1 man had the canvas folded back. The other was checking the lock on the strong box. You saw the strong box? Yes. Dark paint. Iron corners. Brass lock. Was it opened? Not while I watched. Did either man take money? I couldn't see the packets. Louisa's questions came in the order evidence required, not the order anger preferred. What did they say about my ranch? Raphael's mouth tightened. One said the Haskett lambing shed had a rear board that would lift. Said a wagon could come through the east pasture without crossing the main yard. Which man? The taller one. Name? I heard the other call him Dyer. First name? No. Did you see his face? Partly. Enough to know him again if I stood close. Not enough to swear by lantern light. Louisa accepted the limit. What else? They said the place had to be searched once before the chest went under the floor. The words altered the shape of Abner's coming move. An empty search would not prove Louisa innocent. It would prepare the accusation. Who said that? Dyer. And the other man? Said Toll wanted the widow frightened before the buyers heard anything. Said a woman alone would take cash once the route turned against her. Raphael paused. That part I heard clear. Louisa felt the insult without letting it decide her face. The ranch had carried itself through 14 months without Joel. She had selected horses, paid wages, renewed contracts, mended fences, and answered every man who assumed widow meant temporary owner. Abner's plan did not depend on Louisa being weak. It depended on other people believing she must be. How did you get the seal? She asked. The men loaded the strongbox into another wagon and left by the west track. I waited. The seal was in the dirt near the crate with the strip of canvas still caught through it. Why did they leave it? They didn't know it had torn loose. And the rider saw me when I came out. Raphael's eyes narrowed at the memory. Dark chestnut, near 16 hands. Small white spot above the right nostril. The horse guarded its left hind. Shortened the stride when it turned. Saddle, plain working saddle. Right stirrup leather repaired with rawhide. Rider, hat low, coat collar up. I never saw his face. Only told me to stop. Did he name Toll? No. Did he name Dyer? No. Louisa leaned back. Raphael had brought her danger, but he was not filling the empty places with convenient certainty. That did not make him trustworthy. It made him more useful than a liar. Hoofbeats entered the yard at speed. Amos called from outside, followed by the rattle of a light buckboard. Dr. Pritchard came through the tack room door, carrying a black leather bag, his beard untrimmed, and his coat fastened wrong from leaving Juniper Wells in a hurry. He examined Raphael's arm without ceremony. Through, he said. Missed the bone. That is the good news. And the bad? Raphael asked. You lost blood, rode too far, and seem inclined to talk instead of sleep. Pritchard opened his bag. Mrs. Haskett, I need the arm held steady while I clean it. Louisa looked at Raphael rather than the doctor. I will support your wrist and elbow, nothing else. Is that acceptable? Raphael's gaze rested on her face for one measured beat. All right. She moved to his left side, slid one hand beneath his wrist and the other under his elbow, keeping the injured arm away from his ribs. Dr. Pritchard cut the remaining sleeve, washed the wound, and probed only enough to confirm no cloth or splinter remained. Raphael's breathing roughened. His left hand closed around the cot frame. Not Louisa's dress, not her wrist. The wooden rail creaked beneath his grip, but he never shifted the pain onto her body. Hold there, Pritchard said. Louisa held. Raphael gave no sound beyond one low breath when the doctor packed clean cloth against the outer wound. Flat today, Pritchard ordered when the binding was done. Most of tomorrow, too. Short walks only after that. Fever, swelling, heat in the arm, or red streaking, and I come back. I can pay, Raphael began. You can stay alive long enough to argue over the bill. Pritchard closed his bag. Mrs. Haskett, keep water in him. No whiskey. No riding. The doctor had barely stepped into the yard when Cal appeared at the doorway. Mrs. Haskett, 3 riders coming from the west. Louisa crossed to the shelf, lifted the tin cup, and took seal 714 with the attached canvas. She placed both together in her skirt pocket. Who? Abner Toll. 2 stage men with him. Raphael tried to push himself upright. Pain stopped him before Louisa needed to. Stay where you are, she said. He came because he thinks the box is here, Raphael said. No, he came because he expects me to refuse him. Louisa took her rifle and walked outside. Abner Toll waited beyond the chained gate on a broad bay horse. He wore a clean dark coat and the grave expression of a man arriving to offer help no one had requested. Two stage employees sat behind him. Neither was Dyer, according to Raphael's partial description. Mrs. Haskett, Abner called. Western Continental lost a payroll chest west of Juniper Wells. When? Last night. Who reported it? The route men. Has the express office in Winnemucca sent notice? The telegraph will confirm it. Then the telegraph may arrive before you search my buildings. Abner's gaze moved over the chained gate. Tracks lead east. Tracks go many directions in Nevada. A wounded rider came through your gate before dawn. The knowledge was meant to startle her. Louisa gave him none of that satisfaction. Did he? You shelter a man carrying company property, and now you deny a reasonable search. Sheriff Rusk may search under his authority. You may not. One of the stage men shifted in his saddle. Abner did not. Refusal can be misunderstood. So can arriving before the law knows what was lost. His eyes traveled past Louisa toward the lambing shed. The glance lasted less than a second. Long enough. Be certain, he said, that the story you tell matches what your floors contain. Louisa rested one hand on the gate chain. Be certain the next time you come, the sheriff knows why. Abner turned his horse without another word. The two stage men followed. Dust lifted behind them and drifted east across the road. Louisa waited until they disappeared beyond the low rise before returning to the tack room. Raphael remained on the cot. He had obeyed. He named no building, she said. He didn't need to. He looked at the lambing shed. Raphael's face hardened. Then the chest is still moving. Louisa took seal 714 and the attached canvas from her pocket. She checked that both remained together, placed them beneath the overturned tin cup, and set the cup back on the shelf. Abner did not come to learn whether the box was here, Raphael said. Louisa looked through the doorway toward the weathered shed. No. He came to see whether he could put it here. The warning had reached Louisa in time. But it would mean little unless she turned it into a record another man could not rewrite. On the morning of May 26th, she carried a small table beside Raphael's cot and set down paper, ink, and a sharpened pencil. He could sit upright for short periods now, though Dr. Pritchard had forbidden him to stand without help. His right arm remained bound against his side, beneath a clean shirt Cal had loaned him. The wound had stopped bleeding. The weakness had not. Louisa lifted the overturned tin cup from the tackroom shelf. Seal 714 and the torn strip of waxed canvas lay beneath it, still caught together as Raphael had carried them through her gate. You will write only what you saw, heard, or handled, she said, not what you think Abner Toll intended. Raphael rested the pencil in his left hand. You believe I'll make the story larger. Fear does that. Guilt does too. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Begin with your full name and occupation. He wrote slowly, forming each letter with deliberate pressure. Raphael Navarro. Wage outrider and working cowboy. Then he recorded what happened west of Juniper Wells on May 23rd, the northbound express wagon changing teams before the proper relay point, the route equipment shed, the open payroll pouch, and two men inside. One had called the taller man Dyer. Raphael did not know Dyer's first name. He had not seen Abner open the pouch, touch the strongbox, or give an order. He wrote that plainly. Louisa stood over the page. Put in the words about the lambing shed, Raphael did. Haskett lambing shed, rear board. Wagon through east pasture. Search once before the chest went beneath the floor. His pencil paused. The second man said Toll wanted the widow frightened before the buyers heard anything. You heard that clearly? Yes. Then included as words spoken, not proof of who planned the theft. Raphael added the distinction. He described finding seal 7 in the dirt after the men left, with torn waxed canvas still caught through it. He described the dark chestnut rider who followed him east, near 16 hands, a white spot above the right nostril, a guarded left hind step, and raw hide wrapped around the saddle's right stirrup leather. Did you see the rider's face? Louisa asked. No. Could you identify the voice? He said only, stop, not enough to swear to. Then do not write that you can. Raphael lowered his eyes to the paper. I wasn't going to. Good. The word came out sharper than praise. She did not owe him comfort because he respected evidence. That was the minimum required of any man whose warning could cost her the ranch. Raphael continued with the shooting location, the dun horse's condition, And the fact that he reached Ironwood Gate carrying no payroll, no strongbox, and no money beyond his own few coins. At the bottom, he wrote that Seal 714 should be checked against the Western Continental Express register in Winnemucca. Louisa tapped that sentence. How do you know the number belongs to the northbound payroll pouch? I saw the route tag before the pouch went into the wagon. Did you copy the tag? No. Then the register must establish it, yes. He signed the statement with his left hand and pushed it across the table. The writing leaned unevenly, but nothing in it depended on beauty. Louisa read every line twice. The statement did not prove Abner ordered the theft. It established a place, a date, a route change, a man called Dyer, a threat against Ironwood Gate, and a numbered object that could be tested against company records. That was enough for one morning. She took an empty tobacco tin from the office shelf, wiped the dust from inside, and placed Seal 714 and the attached canvas into it without separating them. The tin went into the lower drawer of her desk beneath 2 years of feed receipts. Raphael's signed statement went into a separate compartment. Louisa locked the drawer and returned the key to the cord at her waist. The second key remained in a small iron cash box hidden behind the account ledgers. Hoofbeats approached the yard before she left the office. Raphael heard them and braced his left hand against the table. He began to rise. "Stay seated," Louisa said. He stopped immediately. No argument, no reach toward the harness cabinet where his unloaded revolver remained secured. Louisa took her rifle outside. A young rider from Juniper Wells waited beyond the chained gate with a folded letter tucked beneath his vest. "Mr. Toll said this was business," the boy called. "Said he needs an answer today." "Did he tell you what business?" "No, Mom. Only that uncertain roads don't wait on feelings." Louisa unchained the gate long enough to take the letter, then secured it again before breaking the plain wax. Abner's offer was written in a clerk's neat hand. He proposed immediate cash for Ironwood Gate's seasonal remount contract and a 5-year lease over the spring approach. Consolidating road access, livestock supply, and water responsibility under one contractor, he wrote, would protect buyers during uncertain route conditions. The last sentence warned that divided liability might cause companies to withdraw from independent ranches unable to absorb a loss. The letter did not mention stolen payroll. It did not threaten her directly. It simply offered rescue from a danger. Abner appeared to understand before anyone else. Louisa carried the letter into the office, wrote "declined" across the bottom, and signed Louisa Haskett beneath it. She copied the date and terms into her account book, then placed the original in a separate contract file. When she returned to the tack room, Raphael remained on the cot. "What did he want?" he asked. "My remount contract, my spring approach. 5 years of control dressed as protection." "Did he name the payroll?" "No, then the letter proves pressure, not theft." Louisa set his statement aside to dry. "And motive, if the timing can be joined to the rest." Yes, he gave the answer without trying to enlarge it. That restraint did not erase the danger he had brought. It made the danger easier to measure. After noon, Louisa took Amos to the lambing shed. The rear floorboard Raphael had named showed fresh scoring along one edge. Pale wood lay beneath the weathered surface where a blade had tested the gap. The mark was shallow. Someone had checked how the board might lift, then left it in place. Outside, wagon tracks approached from the east pasture and stopped several feet short of the wall. The rear wheels had cut deep on the way in. The return tracks were lighter. Amos crouched beside the ruts. "Loaded coming, lighter leaving." "Not empty," Louisa said. "Only lighter." You think they tested the turn with weight and learned how close the wagon could come without crossing the yard. No strongbox had been unloaded. Not yet. Louisa measured the distance between the ruts with twine and marked the scoreboard with chalk. "We leave it as found." "You want them to come back?" Amos asked. "I want them to believe they can." They followed the wagon impressions toward the east fence. Most hoof marks had broken apart in hard soil, but a damp patch beneath a leaking water barrel held one left hind print clean enough to read. Louisa knelt. The plate was broad, the toe pressed deep, the outer heel barely touched, and one nail position remained empty. A short drag scored the mud before the hoof lifted. Amos leaned nearer. Same horse Navarro described? Louisa took a small working notebook from her pocket and sketched the print before the sun dried its edges. She marked width, nail position, toe depth, drag direction, and the distance to the next impression. A horse consistent with his description. That sounds like the same thing. It is not. She closed the notebook and stood. One horse could resemble another. One worn shoe could be replaced. One frightened witness could remember badly. Louisa would not build her defense on certainty she had not earned. Beyond the fence, the tracks bent west toward Juniper Wells and Abner Toll's relay yard. The men who had tested her floor had expected dust, rumor, and a widow's isolation to finish the work for them. Instead, they had left a written threat, wheel marks, a scored board, and one careless hoofprint in wet ground. The box had not reached Ironwood Gate, but the horse that would help bring it had already shown Louisa the road home. The hoofprint began losing its edges before Louisa had finished, comparing it to every horse on Ironwood Gate. Dry wind moved across the damp patch beneath the leaking barrel, carrying pale grit into the broad left hind impression. She worked fast. One by one, Amos led the ranch horses over firm ground, while Louisa watched where each hoof landed and how each animal lifted. The bay mare struck evenly. The gray gelding placed toe and heel together. Joel's old sorrel dragged both hind feet from age, not pain. None wore a plate as broad as the one she had drawn. None carried an empty nail hole at the outer heel. None shortened the left hind stride and dragged before lifting. The horse had come from elsewhere. That narrowed the question. It did not answer it. Louisa returned to the tack room with the notebook in one hand and found Raphael seated on the cot, his back against the wall. Dr. Pritchard had allowed him short periods upright, but the effort had drained the color from his face. His right arm remained bound close beneath the clean shirt. His boots rested under the chair. "You checked all of them," he said, "every horse on the place." She opened the notebook to the hoof sketch and held it where he could see without reaching. Broad plate, outer heel nail missing, toe dug deep, short drag before lift. Raphael studied the marks. "That fits the chestnut. It fits what you described. You don't use the word same unless you can close every other door. One similar horse does not identify a rider." No. He accepted the distinction instead of treating caution as doubt. Louisa described the deeper wagon tracks on approach and the lighter return marks. "They carried weight in. Less weight out," Raphael said. "Not necessarily none." "Agreed." "And they stopped short of the wall. They tested the turn." His gaze sharpened. "Then Toll's men wanted to know whether a loaded wagon could reach the rear board without crossing the yard. That is what the ground suggests." Raphael let his head rest against the wall. "The chestnut has stood in Toll's relay string. You saw it there before the shooting? Twice. Same height. Same white spot above the right nostril. I remember the rawhide on the right stirrup leather because the wrap was rough enough to catch a trouser cuff." Louisa watched him. "Could another rider use the saddle?" "Yes." "Could another horse favor the same leg?" "Yes." "Then I inspect before I accuse. You're going to Juniper Wells. Henry Voss is due to look at 4 mares. Toll will know why you're watching his yard. He already knows I refused to sell." Raphael shifted as though preparing to stand. Pain stopped him before Louisa needed to. "You will remain here," she said. "Dr. Pritchard's order. I heard it. That has not always meant obedience to men. You're not asking me to obey a man." The answer landed with more weight than he seemed to intend. Louisa turned toward the peg where a spare bridle hung. Raphael reached with his left hand at the same time she did, meaning only to pass it down. Their fingers met over the worn leather reins. Warm skin, rough knuckles, a contact too brief to claim and too clear to ignore. Raphael withdrew first, not abruptly, simply enough to leave the choice uncontested. Louisa took the bridle from the peg. "You said the chestnut should have been at Juniper Wells the night of May 23rd. "Yes." "What should I ask?" "Which horse worked the west relay after midnight?" "Why? If Toll's book says the chestnut was somewhere else, then either the book is false or the horse was used off record. Who keeps the shift board?" "Usually the hostler. Sometimes the route clerk." "Names?" Raphael closed his eyes briefly, searching memory rather than inventing it. "I heard Dyer at the shed." At Toll's yard, I've seen an S. Dyer on the board. There's also a relief rider marked J. Pike. I don't know the first names." Louisa added both marks to the notebook. "You did not see either man's face clearly enough to swear." "No. You do not know which one rode the chestnut?" "No." "Good." Raphael's mouth moved near a smile. "You have a severe way of approving. It keeps approval from becoming evidence." The next morning, Louisa and Amos rode the 8 miles to Juniper Wells with 4 Ironwood mares behind them. Joel's silver-inlaid spur remained tied to Louisa's saddle horn. Seal 714 and the attached canvas stayed in the tobacco tin inside the locked office drawer. Raphael's statement remained in its separate compartment. Abner's declined offer stayed in the contract file. Louisa carried only the hoof-pattern notebook. Juniper Wells lay open beneath the late May sun. Little more than a store, a blacksmith shed, the relay yard, and a row of low buildings facing a broad strip of dust. Henry Voss waited beside the watering trough with an inspection list folded in one hand. He did not begin with the mares. "There's been a change," he said. "In the horses?" Louisa asked. "In what buyers are willing to risk." "Then write it down." Voss glanced toward Abner Toll's relay office. "No need to make a quarrel formal. You delayed a contracted inspection. It is already formal." He lowered his voice. "The express company lost a payroll. Toll says a wounded rider went straight to your ranch. Toll arrived before any notice came from Winnemucca. I'm not accusing you." "Then write only what you are doing." Voss hesitated, then opened his list and wrote across the bottom, "Inspection postponed pending clarification of route liability concerning Ironwood Gate access." He dated and signed it. Louisa read the sentence before folding the paper into her pocket. "When the facts change, you may write another. You always did make a man hear himself, only when he prefers rumor." She left Amos with the mares and walked toward the relay yard on the public side of the fence. 12 stalls opened onto a central pen. A chalk duty board hung beside the office door. Louisa slowed as though judging the stock. The names were brief and ordinary. Morning Teams, West Relay, Relief. Near the lower edge, half-smudged but readable, stood S. Dyer, West Relay. Beneath it, J. Pike, Relief Rider. The entries carried no date. They proved employment, not guilt. Louisa copied both into her notebook. A dark chestnut stood at the rear of the pen, nearly 16 hands, with a small white spot above the right nostril. When a bay crowded him, the chestnut shifted away and shortened the left hind step. A saddle rested over the rail behind him. Rawhide bound the right stirrup leather in an uneven wrap. Raphael's description had reached the horse. It had not yet reached the rider. Abner came from the office wearing a dark vest and no coat. "Admiring my stock, comparing it." "To what?" "A track near my east fence." His eyes moved to the notebook in her hand. "Tracks are stories told by dirt. Dirt has less reason to lie than men." Abner rested one forearm on the rail. "You brought mares for Voss. Attend to your own animals. Walk the chestnut." His expression did not change, but one finger stopped tapping against the wood. "He is resting. Then walk him slowly. He is not offered for sale. Neither is my spring, though you made an offer. You refused good sense. I refused your price." Abner's gaze hardened. "You have no right to order my horse out." "No, but Voss has delayed my inspection because you attached suspicion to my route. A fair comparison would help him decide whether uncertainty belongs only to Ironwood Gate." Voss had come near enough to hear. He shifted his weight, unwilling to join the dispute but more unwilling to seem afraid of one. "A simple walk harms nothing," he said. Abner turned toward him. "The horse is lame." "Then that fact belongs in any judgment of the relay stock," Louisa said. "Not today." Abner stepped away from the rail. "Your mares can wait until the company decides what your floors contain." Louisa did not answer the insult. She had already seen the horse, the saddle, and the names on the board. She returned to Amos and took the mares home, without allowing Voss's postponement to become a public argument. They had gone less than a mile when fast hoofbeats came behind them. Eli Ward, Toll's young stable hand, pulled up on a sweating pony. He looked back toward town before speaking. "Mrs. Haskett." "What happened?" Mr. Toll told Baines to work on the chestnut before sunrise. "What work?" Eli swallowed. "The left hind shoe." Louisa waited. The boy had not ridden hard to repeat stable chores. He said the outer heel nail had to be replaced before anybody saw the hoof, Eli continued. Who took the horse to Baines, Dyer? Did you see him? Yes. He led the chestnut from the rear pen after dark. Did Abner give the order in front of you? I was carrying feed. He didn't know I was behind the stall wall. Did he name why the nail mattered? No, just said it had to be done before sunrise. Eli's hands tightened on the reins. I shouldn't have come. You came because the order was wrong. I came because Mr. Toll sounded afraid of a missing nail. Louisa looked back toward Juniper Wells. Abner had refused to walk the horse in daylight, then ordered its hoof altered before anyone could examine it. That was not proof of the rider. It was evidence of fear. Ride back by the wash, she told Eli. Say nothing about speaking to me. What will you do? Louisa folded Voss's signed postponement beside the hoof sketch. Give Abner a reason he cannot refuse to show the horse. Louisa sent Henry Voss a written request before sunrise on May 30th. He had postponed judging her mares because Abner Toll had made Ironwood Gate sound like a liability. Louisa asked him to compare that risk in daylight by walking her 4 mares and every horse in Toll's relay string before he signed another conclusion. She gave the note to Cal and told him to wait for an answer. By mid-morning, Cal returned with Voss's reply folded inside his shirt. The inspection would begin at first light the following day. All 12 relay horses would be presented. Louisa read the sentence twice. He agreed, Amos asked. He agreed to look. That isn't the same as standing against Toll. No, but looking is where standing begins. She carried the note to the tack room. Raphael was seated near the open door, his right arm bound beneath his shirt. Dr. Pritchard had allowed him short walks and no riding. Raphael read Voss's reply and returned it with his left hand. Toll will change more than 1 nail if he has the night. Baines will know what he touched. If Baines speaks, then we give him witnesses before fear grows larger. Raphael's gaze moved toward the yard where Louisa's bay mare stood saddled. You mean to take me? Dr. Pritchard means to decide that. The doctor arrived near sunset to examine the wound. He removed the bandage, checked the clean edges, and made Raphael flex his fingers. No fever, no swelling worth cursing, he said. The arm stays bound. You may ride in my buckboard tomorrow, not on horseback. You walk only from the wagon to a chair and back. Raphael frowned. I can sit a saddle. You can also tear the wound open and bleed into your boot. Neither proves courage. Louisa stood with her arms folded. The buckboard. Raphael accepted the decision. No performance, no wounded pride turned against either of them. Before dawn on May 31st, Dr. Pritchard drove Raphael toward Juniper Wells. Louisa and Amos rode beside the wagon with the 4 mares trailing on lead ropes. Joel's silver-inlaid spur remained tied to Louisa's saddle horn. Seal 714 and the attached waxed canvas stayed together in the tobacco tin inside the locked office drawer. Raphael's statement remained in its separate compartment. Abner's declined offer remained in the contract file. Only Louisa's hoof-pattern notebook traveled with her. Juniper Wells had barely awakened when Henry Voss reached the relay yard. The air smelled of wet trough wood, coal smoke from Baines's forge, and dust before heat. Voss carried his inspection sheet and the postponement he had signed 2 days earlier. Abner stood near the office in a dark coat, his expression composed enough to seem reasonable. I agreed to examine 4 mares, Voss said. You did, Louisa replied, and the 12 relay horses affecting the same route judgment. Abner stepped forward. My stock is not part of her contract. Your claims made it part of her risk, Louisa said. If liability belongs to Ironwood Gate alone, the horses will show no connection. Dirt and limping stock do not establish theft. Then walking them costs you nothing. Voss looked from one to the other. Business dislike settled the matter before courage did. All 12, he said. 1 pass each across the damp strip beside the trough. Abner's mouth hardened, but he gave the order. The first relay horse crossed sound. The second carried an old stiffness in the near hock. A chestnut mare swung wide behind from poor shoeing. Louisa said little. She let Voss see the work himself. 7 horses passed, then 9, then 11. The dark chestnut remained in the rear pen. Voss checked the list. I count 11. The last horse is resting, Abner said. Then he can rest while walking slowly, Louisa replied. He isn't offered for sale. Neither are my mares until you finish the comparison. Voss tapped the pencil against his page. Bring him out. A stable hand entered the rear pen. The chestnut resisted the first turn, not from fear but from discomfort. When he came into the open, the white spot above his right nostril showed clearly. He stood near 16 hands. The saddle hanging over the rail behind him carried the rough rawhide repair around the right stirrup leather. Raphael sat in Dr. Pritchard's buckboard, near the public fence. He did not rise. He only watched. The stable hand walked the chestnut across the damp strip. The left hind landed deep at the toe. The outer heel touched lightly. A short drag marked the dirt before the hoof lifted. Louisa opened her notebook to the sketch made at Ironwood Gate. Same broad plate. Same missing outer heel position. Same guarded stride, not proof of rider. Proof the horse had not become someone else merely because Abner wanted daylight to pass. Stop him, Voss said. The stable hand halted. Louisa crouched beside the left hind without touching the horse until the animal saw her. She ran one hand down the cannon bone and lifted the hoof. The plate was sound. One outer heel nail shone brighter than the rest. Beside it remained the dark outline of the older empty hole. Who replaced this nail? She asked. No one answered. Baines emerged from the blacksmith shed, wiping his hands on a leather apron. I did. Abner turned toward him. You shoe half the horses in town. This one yesterday before sunrise. Baines nodded toward the chestnut. Dyer brought him over. The name moved through the yard without force, but Louisa felt Raphael's attention sharpen. Samuel Dyer, Voss asked. That's him, Baines said. West Relay man. Louisa kept her voice even. Who ordered the work? Baines glanced at Abner. Mr. Toll. What was said? That the horse had to go out with a sound heel nail before anybody inspected the foot. Did he ask you to change the shoe? No plate was sound. I drove one new nail. Was the outer heel nail missing when Dyer brought him? Yes. Did the old hole remain? You can see it. Eli Ward stood near the feed room, holding a bucket he had forgotten to carry. Louisa did not call him forward. She looked at Voss. The boy heard the order before he warned me. Abner's gaze snapped toward Eli. The boy went pale, but he set the bucket down and stepped into the open. I heard Mr. Toll say the outer heel nail had to be replaced before anyone saw the hoof, he said. Dyer took the chestnut to Baines. Did you hear why the nail mattered? Voss asked. No, sir. Did anyone tell you what to say today? No, sir. Abner gave a low laugh. A stable boy, a blacksmith, and a widow's drawing. That is your grand proof. Louisa rose and handed the notebook to Voss. It proves only what it proves. I made the measurements at Ironwood Gate before Eli rode after me. The print shows a broad left hind plate, an empty outer heel nail, toe-heavy pressure, and a short drag. This horse shows the same pattern after a new nail was driven into the same position. That connects the horse to the approach near my lambing shed. It does not name the rider. Raphael spoke from the buckboard. I can identify the horse and saddle. Every head turned. His face had gone pale from the ride, but his voice held. That is the chestnut used by the man who chased me. That is the saddle. Abner stepped toward the wagon. Can you identify the rider? Raphael did not answer quickly for effect. No. Then you have nothing. I have what I saw, Raphael said. Nothing larger. Voss studied him, then looked down at Louisa's sketch and the chestnut's fresh print. I will inspect the Ironwood mares today. Abner's composure thinned. You will take the word of a wounded drifter and a frightened boy over a contractor who has kept this route supplied for years. I will take my own eyes, Voss said. He unfolded the postponement he had signed and drew one line through it. Beneath he wrote, Comparative inspection completed. Ironwood Gate remount stock to be judged on condition suitability, not unresolved allegation. He dated and signed the correction. No one applauded. No crowd, declared Louisa Wright, but the words that had reduced her horses now carried a second sentence in the same man's hand. That mattered. Voss examined the mares one by one. He checked teeth, legs, wind, response to pressure, and recovery after a short trot. 2 passed for second consideration. 1 needed another month of conditioning. The 4th he rejected for a weak pastern. Louisa accepted each judgment because it was about the horses rather than rumor. By the time the work ended, Raphael's left hand had begun trembling against the buckboard seat. He hid it by closing his fingers around the edge. Louisa saw. She crossed to him before Dr. Pritchard finished speaking with Voss. "Your pulse is running too fast," she said. "You haven't taken it." Louisa placed 2 fingers against the inside of his left wrist. His skin was warm. The beat beneath her touch came quick and uneven from pain, fatigue, and the strain of remaining still, while Abner tried to turn truth into spectacle. Raphael's gaze dropped to her hand, then returned to her face. He did not turn his wrist or catch her fingers. "Sit back," she said. "All right." He obeyed. Louisa left her fingers there for 1 breath longer than the count required, then withdrew. "You did what I asked, only what I could swear. That is why it carried weight." Amos brought her bay mare from the hitching rail. As Louisa took the reins, Joel's silver-inlaid spur tapped against the saddle horn. Raphael heard the sound. The color that remained in his face disappeared. His eyes fixed on the worn silver. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Louisa put 1 boot into the stirrup but did not mount. "It belonged to my husband." Raphael's left hand tightened on the buckboard rail. "Joel Haskett?" Recognition moved through his voice, followed by something heavier. Louisa turned fully toward him. "You knew Joel?" Raphael stared at the spur as though 14 months had narrowed to the width of the dusty yard. "I saw him on the Humboldt Road." "When?" His answer came low and without escape. "The day he died." Raphael's answer rode home with Louisa and stayed with her long after Juniper Wells disappeared behind the low western ridge. He had seen Joel on the day he died. Not heard of him. Not passed his name in a ledger. Seen him. Louisa asked no more on the road. Dr. Pritchard kept the buckboard slow, and Raphael's face had gone pale enough during the inspection to make further questioning feel like taking advantage of a wound. She would not drag truth from weakness and call it honesty. At Ironwood Gate, Pritchard changed the bandage and found no fresh bleeding. "He rests," the doctor said. "No riding, no lifting, no town journeys. If he opens that arm because pride tells him he's useful, I'll stitch his sleeve to the cot." Raphael accepted the order without protest. That did not ease Louisa's mind. Over the next several days, she let work keep its proper shape around the question he had raised. Henry Voss sent a signed notice that the Ironwood mares would receive a renewed inspection once the route inquiry was settled. He also wrote that 2 of the 4 remained suitable for second consideration. It was not vindication. It was a buyer putting judgment back where rumor had displaced it. Louisa filed the papers separately from Abner's offer. Seal 714 and the attached waxed canvas remained together in the tobacco tin beneath the feed receipts in the locked office drawer. Raphael's statement stayed in its own compartment. Nothing moved merely because her thoughts did. By June 4th, the gray mare in the North Pen had begun refusing anyone who carried white cloth. The fear came from a winter doctoring when 2 men had cornered her against the rail and tied one hind leg too short. Amos tried approaching with a folded bandage tucked beneath his vest. The mare saw the edge of white and spun away. Cal followed with a halter pushed too fast and drove her into the far corner. "Out," Louisa said. Cal lowered the rope. "I almost had her. You almost had her trapped. Same result if the halter's on." Not the same horse afterward. Amos opened the gate, and both men left the pen. Raphael stood outside the rail with his right arm bound beneath his shirt. The bandage showed white near the shoulder where the cloth crossed his chest. He watched the mare's nostrils flare each time he moved. "May I try?" he asked. Louisa studied his color and the way he held the injured arm close. "With one hand. That may be why she lets me. You do not catch the lead if she runs." "Agreed. You do not corner her." "Agreed. And if she pins her ears, you leave." "I will." Louisa opened the gate and stepped aside. Raphael entered without a rope. He stopped well outside the mare's pressure line, turned partly away, and lowered his left hand. The mare raised her head, her attention fixed on the strip of white beneath his shirt. Raphael did not hide it. He did not remove the shirt or cover the bandage with his coat. He simply stood where she could see the thing she feared and discover that it would not move against her. "Most men would conceal the cloth," Louisa said from the gate. "Then she learns the cloth disappears only when the man wants something." Raphael shifted one boot sideways, not nearer. The mare backed 2 steps and stopped. He waited. Wind carried the dry smell of dust and sage through the rails. A fly moved along the mare's flank. She twitched but kept her head high. Raphael rubbed his thumb against 2 fingers, making a faint rasp. Her ears turned toward the sound. He repeated it once, then let his hand hang. The mare lowered her muzzle by an inch. Raphael did not reward the movement by taking ground. He left the distance. Hers. Louisa felt the old temptation to name that patient's kindness. The word was too easy. What mattered was that he gave the mare room when no one was watching closely enough to praise him for it. After several minutes, the gray stepped forward. Raphael remained still. She came close enough to breathe against his knuckles, withdrew, then tried again. Only after the second touch did he stroke the side of her muzzle with 1 finger. No grab for the halter. No triumph. "That is enough," Louisa said. Raphael lowered his hand and left the pen. She would have taken the rope. "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow," he agreed. He did not turn success into authority over the next step. That evening, Louisa carried supper to the tack room herself. 2 plates, beans, salt pork, and bread. She placed them on the small table beside Raphael's cot rather than invite him into the house. Separate rooms remained a clean boundary. Kindness did not require blurred edges. Raphael was sitting upright, his boots on but unlaced. The day's effort had tired him, though he tried to conceal it by keeping his shoulders square. Louisa set down the plates. "Eat before the beans go cold. You didn't have to bring yours, I know." She went back outside. Her saddle hung beneath the eave, and Joel's silver-inlaid spur remained tied to the horn with the same length of rawhide. Louisa worked the knot loose, carried the spur into the tack room, and placed it on the table between the plates. Raphael stopped reaching for his fork. The metal bore scratches from honest use. 1 point of the rowel had been blunted years earlier against a rock on the western boundary. Joel had complained that the pair was too fine for ranch work, then worn them on every long ride because Louisa had saved 3 months to buy them. Raphael did not touch the spur. "You said you saw him," Louisa said. "Yes, start with the message." Raphael's left hand settled on his thigh. "Abner paid me to carry it before dawn. From Juniper Wells? From the route office. Was it addressed to Joel? His name was on the outside. Did you read it?" "No. It was folded and sealed." "What did Abner tell you?" "That a relay team had overturned near Humboldt Crossing. 2 horses hurt. 1 driver caught under the wagon." Louisa remembered the spring runoff that year. The Humboldt had risen hard against the brush, brown and cold with snowmelt. Joel would have answered any report of trapped men or injured horses. Abner would have known that. "What road did he say was open?" she asked. Raphael's jaw tightened. "The north bank. And the south approach?" "Washed out. Was it? I didn't know then." Louisa's appetite disappeared. She pushed her plate back. "You delivered the message to Joel here?" "Yes." "What did he do?" "Read it once. Asked which road was open." "What did you tell him?" "What Toll told me, north bank." Raphael's voice had gone lower. Joel saddled and left. The answer placed Raphael inside a memory Louisa had guarded for 14 months. Joel moving through the pre-dawn yard, 1 spur flashing at his heel. Urgency making farewell seem unnecessary. She had believed he rode toward misfortune. Now she saw the first hand that carried it to him. "What happened after?" she asked. "One of Toll's men sent me south with route instructions." "Why?" "Said a freight team needed the road marked." "Did it?" Raphael looked at the spur. "No." "When did you learn there was no stranded relay team?" "Later that day." Louisa's fingers closed around the edge of the table. "How?" "The timing was wrong. No doctor left town. No relief wagon. No spare horses. I doubled back toward the crossing. And there was no overturned team." He stopped there. Partial answer. A larger darkness behind it. Louisa picked up Joel's spur and turned the worn shank in her palm. Raphael reached across the table, then stopped before touching it. "May I?" She could have refused. Instead, she shifted the spur toward him without releasing it. Raphael placed his left fingers beneath the rowel. Their hands met around the iron. His skin was rough and warm. Neither held the other. The object held them both. Louisa felt how easily grief could turn contact into comfort before truth had earned the right. She kept her hand where it was. Raphael's thumb moved once against the underside of the spur, tracing the worn silver rather than her fingers. "Did you see Joel again?" she asked. "Yes." "Alive?" Raphael's eyes lifted to hers. From a distance. Before Louisa could ask more, Hoofbeats entered the yard at speed. Amos called from outside. Louisa and Raphael released the spur at the same instant. She stood, carried it to the saddle, and reeded it to the horn before facing the rider. The man had come from Juniper Wells, dust thick across his coat. "Mrs. Haskett," he said. "Sheriff Rusk rides out at first light. Toll went to him with word he has cause to search Ironwood Gate. Did Rusk send you?" "No, Henry Voss did. Thought you ought to know before Toll reached the gate." Louisa glanced toward the lambing shed. The scoreboard remained untouched. The strongbox was not beneath it. Not yet. "The sheriff may search," she said. "Abner Toll enters only if Rusk requires it." The rider nodded and turned back toward the road. Louisa returned to the tack room. Raphael had not stood. His unfinished supper waited beside hers, with empty space between the plates where Joel's spur had rested. "Before Sheriff Rusk arrives," Louisa said, "you will finish the part you have been choosing not to tell." Raphael's face went still. Outside, Joel's spur struck the saddle horn as the bay mare shifted. "Did you carry the message that sent my husband to the Humboldt crossing?" "Yes," Raphael said. "I carried it." Louisa did not move. The tack-room table stood between them with 2 plates gone cold. Outside, Joel's silver-inlaid spur struck the saddle horn whenever the bay mare shifted in the yard. "From the beginning," Louisa said. "No part chosen because you think I can bear it." Raphael sat upright against the wall, his right arm bound beneath his shirt. "March of last year, Abner Toll paid me to take a folded message to Joel before dawn. He said a relay team had overturned near Humboldt Crossing, 2 horses hurt. 1 driver pinned beneath the wagon. Was the message signed?" "Toll's name was written outside." "Did you read what was inside?" "No, it was sealed." The answer hurt because it was ordinary. Raphael had carried the lie as honest work. "What did Toll say about the road?" she asked. "That the south approach had washed out, that the north bank was the only way through." "You believed him?" "Yes." "You reached Ironwood Gate?" "Before sunrise. Joel was already in the yard." Raphael's voice roughened. "I gave him the message. He read it once and asked which road was open." "You told him north?" "Yes." Louisa remembered Joel leaving with no long farewell because injured men and horses could not wait. She had thought danger found him on the road. Now she knew danger had arrived folded in another man's coat. "What happened after he rode? One of Toll's men sent me south with route instructions. Said a freight team needed the road marked." "Did it?" "No." "When did you know?" "Later that day." "No doctor left Juniper Wells, no relief wagon, no spare team." Raphael's left hand closed on the edge of the cot. "I doubled back. First to the road above it. I saw an express wagon coming off your spring route. It should have remained on the official line. Men were changing teams outside the scheduled point." "Abner?" "I saw his horse and one of his route foremen. I did not see Toll inside the wagon." "Then what did you see of Joel?" Raphael drew a shallow breath. "His tracks entered the north bank. The water had risen. I found no tracks coming out." River sound returned to Louisa's memory. Brown water striking brush. Amos shouting across the current. Joel's empty saddle recovered days later with 1 spur still buckled and the other gone. "You knew the message was false," she said. "Yes." "You knew he had ridden because you delivered it." "Yes." "And you said nothing for 14 months. Raphael did not offer an excuse quickly enough to sound prepared. "I was afraid Toll's men would kill me if I spoke. Then I told myself I had no proof beyond the lie and the wagon. After enough time, fear began calling itself caution." Louisa stepped closer. "And when you crossed my gate, I knew the ranch name. I was losing blood. I saw the spur, but not clearly enough to be certain. At Juniper Wells, when it struck the horn, I knew." "You still waited?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I believed you would hear only that my hand carried Joel toward the river. I thought you would turn me out before Seal 714 could be checked." "So you chose which part of my own grief I was allowed to know." Raphael took the accusation without flinching. "Yes." Anger brought Louisa within reach. Beneath it lay another need, more dangerous because she had not invited it, the wish to lean into his uninjured side and stop carrying the weight alone. She moved half a step. Raphael's left hand rose, then halted before touching her. He waited. The restraint made the remaining distance entirely hers. Louisa wanted the offered shelter. She also wanted the truth he had withheld. The two could not yet occupy the same place. She stepped back. Raphael lowered his hand. "Do not mistake sorrow for permission," she said. "I won't. And do not decide that leaving will settle what you did." His gaze shifted toward the saddlebags near the wall. "I thought I should give Sheriff Rusk my statement and go. That would be another decision made without me. Toll will use my part in Joel's death against you. He already has. Staying may make that worse. Leaving may make it worse. You do not bring me truth in pieces and choose the hour you disappear." Raphael's shoulders tightened. "What do you want?" "You will tell Sheriff Rusk this same chronology. You will separate what you saw from what you believe. You will not accuse Abner of murder when you cannot prove he intended Joel's death. Agreed. You will not confess to theft you did not commit." His jaw hardened. "If it clears you, a lie does not clear me. It only gives Abner another story." Raphael lowered his eyes. "Agreed." Hoofbeats sounded at the gate with the first light of June 5th. Sheriff Daniel Rusk arrived in a buckboard with a deputy beside him. Abner rode behind them with 2 stage employees and several men from Juniper Wells, who had followed rumor more willingly than law. Louisa met them inside the chained gate. Rusk removed his hat. Gray showed at his temples, and his face carried the fatigue of a man who had already heard too much certainty. "Mrs. Haskett Toll, reports cause to believe the missing payroll chest may be on your property." He reported the same belief before notice could have reached him from Winnemucca. Abner's expression remained composed. The route made the danger plain. Sheriff Rusk raised one hand. "Will you allow a search?" "By you and your deputy. My men open every door. Nothing leaves without being named in my presence." "Fair. Toll does not handle my property." Rusk glanced at Abner. "He won't. The house came first, then the office." Louisa unlocked cupboards, trunks, and storage spaces large enough to hide a strongbox. The lower desk drawer remained closed. It could hold papers and a tobacco tin, not an iron payroll chest. Seal 714 and the attached canvas stayed beneath the feed receipts. Raphael's statement remained separate. Abner's declined offer remained in the contract file. The tack room yielded Raphael's empty holster, spare shirt, dried meat, medicines, and saddle. The barns held feed, tools, and harness. At the lambing shed, Louisa pointed out the scored rear board and the wagon impressions. Rusk crouched beside the marks before his deputy raised the plank. Empty earth lay beneath it. No chest, no pouch, no payroll. Abner stared at the bare space longer than a man surprised by innocence should have. "Navarro moved it," he said. "When?" Louisa asked. "He's been here for days, unable to ride. Seen by my men and Dr. Pritchard." Abner turned so the watchers at the fence could hear. "A grieving widow shelters the man who carried her husband toward death, and now she expects us to believe stolen money passed through her land without her knowledge." The words struck where he intended. Louisa gave him no spectacle in return. "Grief did not replace your chestnut's heel nail. It did not score my floor. It did not bring you to my gate before the official report." Rusk stood and closed his notebook. "The search is finished. For now," Abner said. "The money will be found here." "Then bring facts," Rusk replied, "not prophecy." Raphael stepped from the tack room, unarmed, his injured arm secured. "I'll give you my statement." Rusk studied him. "In Juniper Wells after I finish here. I'll come." Abner mounted with his anger pulled tight beneath courtesy. "Remember who warned you before she had time to prepare another tale." Louisa watched him ride out. The empty search should have brought relief. Instead, Abner's confidence sharpened the question Raphael had already answered. The chest had never been meant to be found that morning. For 2 days after the search, nothing came through the east gate. On June 6th, Henry Voss sent a signed notice setting a renewed inspection date for the Ironwood mares. On June 7th, a buyer from farther west wrote that he would examine 2 animals if the express company cleared the route. Abner's pressure was losing ground. Louisa understood what that meant. She doubled the night watch but left the lambing shed unchanged. The scored board stayed loose. The east approach remained open. She wanted the men who had tested it to believe their road was still safe. Near midnight, a mare screamed in the east pasture. Then the remount string broke into thunder. Amos shouted that the fence had been cut. Cal ran for the lead gray. Every capable rider turned toward the fleeing horses. Louisa reached for her rifle. Beneath the pounding herd came another sound. Slower, nearer the buildings. A wagon wheel groaned beside the lambing shed, and men moved through the darkness where the empty floor had been waiting. Louisa heard the wagon leave lighter than it had come. The difference was buried beneath the thunder of frightened horses, but she knew the sound of weight on wheels. One rear axle had groaned when the wagon approached the lambing shed. On the retreat, the same wheel struck the hard ground with a quicker, emptier knock. Something had been left behind. Ames and Cal were already running toward the east pasture. Louisa caught Amos by the sleeve before he reached the corral. "Take the lead gray and turn the remount string before the dry wash. Do not chase them hard. What about the shed? I will see to it," she pointed at Cal. "Work the outside edge. Count every horse when you bring them in." Raphael came from the tack room, fastening his coat over the binding on his right arm. "They used the herd to clear the yard." "Yes." His gaze moved toward the lambing shed. "I'm going with you." "No, Louisa. You guard the office porch. Do not leave unless someone enters the building. The seal is inside. That is why you remain." Raphael looked toward the rifle propped beside the tack room door. His left hand started toward it, then stopped. "What do you need me to watch?" "The office door, the shed guard, and every person who crosses between them." She turned to the third ranch hand. "Stand at the house corner. If anyone moves toward the office, call out before you follow." The man nodded and took position. Raphael stepped onto the office porch without argument. He stood where Louisa had placed him, unarmed and pale beneath the moonlight. Power held in check. She had no time to consider why the sight mattered. Louisa mounted her bay mare. Joel's silver-inlaid spur struck the saddle horn as she turned behind the barn and approached the lambing shed from the north. No lantern showed near the building. The wagon had already vanished toward the east road. Fresh ruts crossed the older practice tracks. The inbound wheels had cut deep, especially at the rear axle where the turn tightened beside the wall. The outbound marks were shallower, heavy in, light out. Louisa dismounted short of the shed and tied the mare to a post. She circled the building with her rifle low. 2 sets of boot prints led from the wagon track to the rear wall. One heel had bitten deep in the damp soil near the corner. No prints continued toward the house or office. Raphael remained on the porch, a dark shape against the door, exactly where she had ordered him. The shed door was closed. Louisa did not touch it. She waited until the first horses returned through the cut fence. Amos led the gray, and the frightened mares followed in a loose string. Cal came behind them with one sleeve torn and dust across his face. Louisa counted the remounts once, then again. Every horse was present. "The fence?" she asked. "Wire cut clean near the lower post," Amos said. "They drove the herd out, then left it, because the horses were never the theft." Louisa handed Cal the bay's reins. "You and Amos come with me. Both of you will see every movement I make." She positioned them outside the lambing shed door. "I will open the building. I will lift the scored board only enough to look beneath it. Neither of you enters unless I ask." Amos's face tightened. "You think the chest is there? I think someone wants us to find it without witnesses." Louisa opened the door. Old wool, dry straw, and timber dust held the night's warmth. She lit a lantern and hung it from the wall peg. The rear floorboard sat higher than it had during Sheriff Rusk's search. Dirt had been brushed across the edge, but the pale wood exposed by a fresh blade showed beneath it. Louisa knelt. She slid the tip of a harness knife into the gap and raised the plank no more than 2 inches. Lamplight entered the hollow beneath the floor. A dark painted lid lay below. Iron corners, brass lock, Western Continental Express stamped across the top. Louisa lowered the board without putting her hand beneath it. "Did you see the box?" she asked. "Yes," Amos said. Cal swallowed. "Clear as day. Did you see me touch it?" "No." "Move it." "No." "Open it." Amos shook his head. The lock looked closed. "Then say that only." "Looked closed." She stood and placed the harness knife on the wall shelf. "Cal, remain outside this door. No one enters." "Amos, take the lower pasture route to Juniper Wells. Cross the wash before turning west. Find Sheriff Rusk and tell him the payroll chest has been placed beneath my floor since his empty search. Tell him I have not touched, moved, or opened it." Amos glanced toward the road. Tall may have men watching. That is why you do not use the road. Do I carry a note? No paper, no evidence. Only what you saw. Amos left within minutes. Louisa set the third hand to relieve Cal every hour and ordered both men to remain outside the shed. Then she crossed the yard to the office. Raphael watched her unlock the door but did not follow until she said, "You may stand in the doorway." The lower desk drawer remained locked. Louisa took the key from the cord at her waist and opened it. Beneath 2 years of feed receipts sat the tobacco tin. She lifted the lid. Seal 714 and the torn waxed canvas remained caught together. Raphael's signed statement rested in its separate compartment. Abner's declined offer remained in the contract file. Nothing had moved. Louisa returned the tin to its place and locked the drawer. "The box is there," she said. Raphael closed his eyes once. "Where I told you it would be, under the rear board. Then Toll has what he needs. He has a chest beneath my floor. He does not yet have the story. The men who saw you find it work for you. Sheriff Rusk saw the floor empty on June 5th. Toll will say I brought the box after the search. You could barely cross the yard. Tonight, Raphael looked toward his saddlebag beside the tackroom wall. I can give Rusk a confession before Toll reaches him." Louisa's voice sharpened. "A confession to what?" "The payroll. Say I hid the chest before I came through your gate. That is false. It clears you. It says Ironwood Gate sheltered a thief who chose my lambing shed. Then I leave now and surrender in Juniper Wells, away from the ranch." He reached for the saddlebag with his left hand. Louisa crossed the distance and placed her palm flat against the center of his chest. Raphael stopped. Beneath her hand, his breathing was hard but controlled. He did not touch her wrist. He did not lean into the contact or turn it into comfort. "Do not make guilt another order," she said. "I'm trying to protect you by choosing what I am permitted to risk. The chest is under your floor, and I found it with witnesses. I sent for the sheriff. Those were my choices. If Rusk takes me, Toll may reach you while I'm held. Then trust me to speak before he does." Raphael's gaze dropped briefly to her hand. Louisa removed it. The warmth remained in her palm. "You will stay until Rusk arrives. You will tell him what you know, not what would make the easiest sacrifice. If he takes you into custody, you will go without running. And if staying makes the case against you worse, then we answer with facts." He let his hand fall from the saddlebag. "All right." Louisa spent the rest of the night recording what darkness would soon erase. She measured the fresh wheel ruts, marked where deep inbound tracks became light outbound ones, and wrote the times each man took watch at the shed. No one entered the building. No one touched the floorboard. Dawn had begun whitening the eastern ridge when hoofbeats approached from the lower pasture. Sheriff Rusk rode in with his deputy and Amos. Louisa met them at the gate and gave the sequence without interpretation. Cut fence, driven remounts, heavy wagon arrival, lighter departure, raised board, visible locked chest, witnesses, untouched scene. Rusk examined the wagon tracks first. Then he entered the shed, with Louisa, Amos, Cal, and his deputy watching. He lifted the board and described the box aloud before anyone moved it. His deputy wrote the words in a small notebook. Rusk passed ropes beneath the iron handles without opening the brass lock. Amos and the deputy raised the strongbox together and set it on 2 boards outside the shed. Earth clung to one lower side. The lock remained closed. Rusk tied the chest into his buckboard between 2 crosspieces. Then he turned to Raphael. "Until the box and the numbered seal are checked, you will come with me to Juniper Wells." Raphael stood near the tackroom with his right arm bound, and his horse saddled 10 paces away. "Am I under arrest?" "You are held for inquiry." Raphael glanced toward the open gate. Beyond it lay the east pasture, the dry wash, and more roads than one injured man needed to disappear. Sheriff Rusk rested one hand near his holster but did not draw. Raphael looked at her. "You told me not to run." "I did." He stepped away from the horse. "Then I won't." Raphael did not leave Ironwood Gate when Sheriff Rusk ordered him into custody. The sheriff had found too much beneath Louisa's floor to hurry away from the ground that explained how it arrived. Through June 8th, Rusk measured the fresh wagon ruts before the sun hardened their edges, questioned Amos, Cal, and the third ranch hand separately, and recorded every hour the lambing shed had been watched after discovery. The strongbox remained locked and tied between two crosspieces in his buckboard. His deputy stayed within sight of it. Raphael sat on the tackroom porch with his right arm bound beneath his shirt and no weapon at his side. His saddled horse stood 10 paces away for most of the afternoon. The east gate remained open while men moved between the shed and yard. No rope held Raphael. No irons circled his wrists. He could have reached the pasture before the deputy mounted. He never rose. Louisa noticed each chance he did not take. Near sunset, Rusk decided the road to Juniper Wells could wait until morning. "I won't carry a chest this important over rough ground in the dark," he said, "nor a wounded man who may fall out of the wagon and give Toll a new story." His deputy spread a blanket near the buckboard. Raphael accepted another on the porch. Louisa did not invite him into the house. The truth he had withheld still stood between them, even after the choice he had made at the gate. Before she went inside, she set a cup of water beside him. "How is the arm?" "Closed." That was not the question. Raphael flexed the fingers of his right hand beneath the binding. Pain tightened his mouth. "It pulls when I stand too long." "Then do not stand too long. You still expect me to follow an order. I expect you to decide whether keeping your word matters." He lowered himself onto the porch step. "It does." The answer stayed with Louisa through the short night. At sunrise on June 9th, Sheriff Rusk brought the strongbox back beside the lambing shed before taking it off the ranch. He set it on 2 boards and read his description aloud. Dark-painted company chest, iron-bound corners, brass lock closed, earth along the lower right side, rope marks added during lawful removal. Amos, Cal, Louisa, and the deputy each confirmed the condition. Rusk had them state again that Louisa had raised the floorboard only enough to see the chest and had never touched the box or lock. Then he secured it in the buckboard once more. "Now the numbered seal," he said. Louisa led him to the office. Raphael remained outside until Rusk called him into the doorway. The lower desk drawer was still locked. Louisa removed the key from the cord at her waist, opened the drawer, and lifted 2 years of feed receipts. The tobacco tin sat beneath them, exactly where she had placed it on May 26th. Raphael's statement remained in its separate compartment. Abner's declined offer stayed in the contract file. Louisa set the tin on the desk and opened the lid. Seal 714 lay inside with the torn strip of waxed canvas still caught through it. Neither piece had been separated. Sheriff Rusk spread a clean square of cloth beside the tin. "Navarro, is that what you carried through Mrs. Haskett's gate?" "Yes." "Did she possess it before you arrived?" "No." "Did she know what it meant?" "Only what I told her, that it came from the northbound payroll pouch, and the number should be checked against the express register in Winnemucca." "Did you tell her Abner Toll opened the pouch?" "No. I didn't see him open it." "Did you tell her he ordered the robbery?" "No." Rusk looked at Louisa. "You kept this in the drawer?" "Since May 26th. Before that, under an overturned tin cup in the tack room, except while Toll stood at my gate. Then both pieces were together in my skirt pocket." "Who had keys to this drawer?" "I carried one. The second remained in a locked cash box behind the account ledgers." Rusk lifted the seal and canvas together by the cloth, wrapped them without separating them, and tied the bundle with cord. He wrote the number, the attached canvas, the storage history, and the date of transfer into his notebook. Then he copied the description onto a clean sheet, signed it, and had his deputy sign beneath him. He handed the receipt to Louisa. She read every line before folding it into her skirt pocket. "The seal and canvas remain together," she said. "They will. The chest remains locked until a company agent identifies it." "Yes." "And Toll does not question Raphael without you or your deputy present." Rusk regarded her across the desk. "You are setting terms for a man I'm holding. I am telling you what Toll tried to control before you arrived." The sheriff considered the distinction. "Toll does not speak to Navarro without me or my deputy there." Raphael's shoulders eased by a fraction. Louisa crossed to the harness cabinet and unlocked it. His revolver lay inside, unloaded. The cartridges remained in a separate drawer. She carried the weapon by the grip and placed it on the desk. Raphael picked it up by the barrel with his left hand and extended the handle toward Rusk. "You won't need to take it from me." The sheriff accepted it and locked it beneath the buckboard seat. You understand you are coming to Juniper Wells under my authority. I understand. You remain there until I have your full statement and the seal can be checked. Yes. Outside, Raphael's horse stood tied near the gate. The reins hung loose over the rail. Beyond them lay low ridges, dry washes, and more than one road a man could use to vanish before the sheriff cleared the yard. Rusk and his deputy were occupied with the strongbox. Louisa watched Raphael study the horse. You could reach the east pasture before either of them mounted, she said. I know. You could cross the dry wash before they found your trail. Probably. Then Abner calls you a fugitive. Raphael's left hand flexed at his side. He'll call me guilty whether I stay or run. But only one choice lets the sheriff say you remained. He turned toward her. And while I remain, you mean to go to Winnemucca. The original evidence stays with Rusk. His receipt goes with me. Tall will have riders on the West Road. Then I will not use the West Road. The Northern Stock Trail? It adds miles. It also gives him fewer places to wait. Louisa heard concern in the answer. No command. Amos stays with the remount string, she said. The ranch has already been left thin once. You'll ride alone. Yes. Raphael looked toward the lambing shed, then at the open gate. You are asking me to sit in Juniper Wells while you ride toward men who already shot me. I am asking you to remain where your presence can be verified. That feels like doing nothing. Trust often does. His breath left slowly. Movement had kept Raphael alive along stage roads. Stillness required him to place his fate in someone else's hands. If Toll reaches you first, he began, then trust me to speak first. And if Rusk puts me in the rear room, stay there. If the window is open, stay. If I hear riders leave town, stay. The edge of his mouth moved without amusement. You have made the instruction plain. Will you keep it? Raphael looked once more at the horse. Then he stepped away from the rail. Yes, Sheriff Rusk called his name from the buckboard. Raphael put one boot on the wheel hub, but Louisa touched his sleeve before he climbed. He turned. The hurt between them had not disappeared. Neither had the evidence of what he had done since entering her gate. Every limited claim, every stopped hand, every moment he allowed her decision to govern what happened next. Trust had not returned whole. It had returned in pieces she could count. Louisa lifted her hand to his cheek. Rough beard met her palm. Raphael became still. He did not lean into the touch. He waited. May I? She asked. His breath caught once. Yes, Louisa kissed him. Briefly, but without uncertainty. His mouth was warm beneath hers, receiving rather than taking. Raphael's left hand rose toward her waist and stopped until she rested her free hand on his shoulder. Only then did his fingers touch the side of her coat, light enough that she could leave without resistance. Louisa ended the kiss first. They remained close for one shared breath. That was not forgiveness for what you hid, she said. I know. It means I believe you can still tell the truth. I will, and it does not give you permission to turn yourself into a sacrifice. I understand. She stepped back. Raphael climbed onto the buckboard beside Rusk. He did not look again at his horse. By afternoon, a rider returned from Juniper Wells with word that Raphael was in the rear holding room. The strongbox remained locked in the adjoining office under guard, and he had made no attempt to leave. Near dusk, Cal rode in from the north fence. 3 armed men passed west through Juniper Wells, he said. Fresh horses, bedrolls, enough food for 2 days. Toll's men? Louisa asked. They didn't say. They did not need to. Abner had not waited for Louisa to choose her road to Winnemucca. He had already sent men to choose it for her. Louisa left Ironwood Gate before sunrise on June 10th. While the 3 armed men were still watching the West Road for a woman they believed would choose the shortest way to Winnemucca. She carried Sheriff Rusk's signed receipt inside her coat, the hoof-pattern notebook in a saddlebag, and enough food and water for a long day. Seal 714 and the attached waxed canvas were no longer hers to carry. They remained together in Rusk's custody. The strongbox remained locked under guard in Juniper Wells. Joel's silver-inlaid spur still hung from her saddle horn, tapping lightly whenever the bay mare changed stride. Amos stood at the gate with one hand on the chain. The northern trail adds 5 or 6 miles. It also leaves the West Road empty for Toll's men. Take Cal. The ranch was left thin once already. It will not happen twice. Amos did not waste time arguing after the decision was made. If you are not back by the 13th, I ride to Juniper Wells. Ask Rusk before you ride farther. Louisa turned the mare north instead of west. The old stock trail climbed through low sage ridges, then dropped toward a dry wash where cattle had once been moved around spring floodwater. It was not a road suited to wagons. That was why she chose it. By mid-morning, sunlight had burned the cool from the air. The bay mare traveled steadily, but Louisa did not push her. A horse ridden into exhaustion would not bring evidence home. Near the northern cut, Louisa found 2 fresh sets of tracks crossing from the west. One horse wore a narrow front shoe. The other dragged a toe on the right. The riders had guessed she might avoid the road, not well enough to know which line she would take. She left the trail and climbed a stony shelf where the bay's hooves made little mark. Below, 2 men appeared among the sage. One wore a tan coat. The other rode a sorrel and carried a rifle across his saddle. They separated when they saw her, intending to narrow the ground ahead. Louisa studied the slope. The left path dropped into soft alkali. The right passed beneath a broken bank where only one horse could move at a time. She chose neither. She turned uphill. The man on the sorrel urged his horse across the incline to block her. His reins had twisted beneath the animal's neck, and when the sorrel fought the pressure, one front leg crossed badly over the other. The horse stumbled toward the broken edge. The rider swore and hauled harder. "Release the rein," Louisa called. He reached for his rifle instead. The sorrel went to its knees. Louisa drew her revolver and aimed at the ground beside him. "Drop the gun, or your horse goes over with you." The man froze. "You won't shoot. I do not need to. Your hands are killing the animal." The sorrel scrambled, one hind hoof throwing loose stone into the cut. The rider let the rifle fall. Now the revolver. He dropped that too. Louisa dismounted without lowering her own weapon. "Step away from the horse." "You think I'll let you ride on after this? I think you will decide whether toll pays enough to break your neck." The second rider had stopped below, too far to fire safely past his companion. Louisa kept the slope between them. She approached the sorrel from the shoulder, cut the twisted rein free with her knife, and loosened the cheekpiece before the horse could struggle again. The animal rose trembling, with no blood at the knees and weight on all 4 legs. Louisa checked the front tendons by touch. Strained perhaps, not broken. "Walk him," she told the rider. "I need that horse. You need to lead him downhill and give him water. Ride him hard, and he may not carry you farther than the next wash. Why help him? Because he did not choose your employer." She took the rifle bolts, emptied both revolvers, and scattered the cartridges deep into the sage. Then she mounted the bay mare. "Tell Abner Toll the northern trail was not empty." The second rider began climbing toward them. Louisa turned across the stone shelf before he could reach the narrow passage. Neither man followed at speed. By late afternoon, Winnemucca appeared beyond the pale basin, marked first by telegraph poles and then by railroad smoke. Louisa entered town tired, dust-streaked, and still upright. She took the bay mare directly to a livery, paid for grain, water, and a rub-down, and made the owner record the animal's condition and arrival time in his daybook. The mare would not be ridden again that day. Louisa removed nothing from the saddle. Joel's spur remained tied to the horn. At the Western Continental Express office, Benjamin Creel stood behind a high counter beneath shelves of ledgers and route books. He was a narrow man with ink on 2 fingers and the habit of reading paper before faces. Louisa placed Rusk's receipt in front of him. "Sheriff Daniel Rusk holds seal 714 with torn waxed canvas attached, and a locked company strongbox recovered from beneath my lambing shed floor." Creel read the receipt twice. "You are Louisa Haskett?" "Yes. Toll sent word that company property may have been hidden on your ranch. He came to search before the property was there." That made Creel look up. Louisa gave him the sequence without ornament. Raphael's arrival, the numbered seal, the empty first search, the cut fence, the heavy wagon coming in, the lighter wagon leaving, and the locked chest discovered under a board that had been empty 2 days earlier. She did not accuse Abner of opening the pouch, ordering Raphael shot, or intending Joel's death. Creel listened without interruption. When she finished, he unlocked the current route ledger. You came to learn whether the seal number belongs to the missing pouch, and whether the team change west of Juniper Wells was authorized. Creel found the May 23rd entry. His forefinger moved down the page. Northbound payroll pouch, Western Continental. Seal 714. The number sat in black ink beside the scheduled departure from Winnemucca. Louisa did not feel relief. Relief would come after the record reached men who could no longer pretend not to see it. Who authorized the early team substitution? She asked. Creel turned to a second book. The regular change point had been struck through in red pencil. An alternate notation sent the wagon west of Juniper Wells, under livestock route authority. The initials beside it belonged to Abner Toll's office. This was not approved from Winnemucca, Creel said. Could Toll make a temporary change? For weather, injury, or blocked road. He was required to report it by the next rider. Did he? Creel checked the following pages. No. Louisa opened her notebook but did not copy the ledger until Creel gave permission. He wrote the relevant entries onto company paper, signed them, and pressed the office stamp beside his name. There is another record, Louisa said. March of last year. The day Joel Haskett died. An express wagon left the official road near Humboldt Crossing. Creel's attention sharpened. He brought out an older route book. The March entry took longer to find. When he did, the notation was plain. Emergency deviation, North Bank passage advised, livestock contractor notified. No doctor dispatch, no disabled relay team, no recorded overturned wagon. This confirms the route was altered, Creel said. It does not establish why, nor that Abner intended Joel to die. You still say that after what he has done. I say what the paper proves. Creel studied her, then nodded once. That may be why Sheriff Rusk's receipt is worth more than Toll expected. A telegraph key began clicking in the adjoining room. The operator brought Creel a narrow strip of paper. Company headquarters ordered him to inspect the recovered strongbox, verify the payroll, and suspend any movement of the Juniper Wells relay stock until the Chestnut and route records were examined. Creel folded the message. I leave on the eastbound stage tomorrow morning. A county deputy will travel with us. My mare needs the day. Leave her here. I will send one of our trusted riders with her after she has rested. Louisa looked toward the livery across the street. The saddle remains on her. So does the spur tied to the horn. I will write both into the transfer note. Creel did. Louisa read the description before signing beneath it. Bay mare, working saddle. 1 silver inlaid spur fastened by rawhide to the saddle horn. Nothing would move without a record. On June 12th, Louisa and Creel boarded the eastbound stage with the county deputy. The company rider left later with the rested bay mare, bound for Juniper Wells by the regular road. Dust followed the stage across the basin. Louisa sat opposite Creel with Rusk's receipt inside her coat and the copied route entries in his leather case. She thought of Raphael in the rear holding room, choosing stillness while every instinct must have told him to ride. She had chosen the road. He had chosen not to. Near evening, the stage climbed the last rise above Juniper Wells. Below, the relay yard lay in long shadows. A man was leading the dark Chestnut through the western gate. Even at a distance, Louisa recognized Abner Toll's dark coat and the horse's shortened left hind step. Creel leaned forward. Is that the animal named in your account? Yes. Abner was not waiting for the company to inspect its living evidence. He was moving it. The stage had not reached the foot of the rise before the county deputy pulled the brake cord and jumped into the road. Western Lane, Louisa said, pointing toward Abner Toll and the dark Chestnut. The deputy ran ahead while Creel climbed down with his leather case. Abner had one hand on the Chestnut's bridle and the other on the western gate. He stopped when the deputy stepped into the opening. That horse stays in the yard, the deputy said. By whose order? Abner asked. Sheriff Rusk's, until the company agent examines him. Creel came through the dust behind them. And by Western Continental's order, no relay stock named in this inquiry is to be moved. Abner's grip tightened on the bridle. You have taken a widow's account over years of service. I have taken no account yet, Creel said. That is why the horse remains. Sheriff Rusk crossed from the express office with his hand resting near his holster. He did not draw. Put the Chestnut in the separate pen. saddle and bridle on the outer rail. No one handles any of them without me present. Baines emerged from the blacksmith shed and looked at the horse's left hind. He should not travel tonight anyway. That leg has carried too much road. Abner released the bridle only after the deputy took it. The chestnut shortened the left hind step as he was led across the yard. The rawhide repair on the saddle's right stirrup leather caught the last light. Louisa watched it enter the guarded pen. Living evidence preserved before rumor could move it out of reach. A man with a bedroll over one shoulder appeared behind the feed shed. He carried a small sack and walked toward the east alley with his head down. Creel opened his route book. The man stopped. "You were assigned West Relay on May 23rd. Dyer looked toward Abner. "I'm off duty." "You are not leaving town," Rusk said. Dyer shifted his weight as if measuring the alley. The deputy moved behind him. "Set down the bedroll." Dyer obeyed. Rusk placed in a separate room beside the express office, away from Abner and Raphael. Only then did Louisa cross the yard. Raphael stood in the open doorway of the rear holding room. The window beside him was raised against the heat. No bars covered it. The back lane beyond the room led toward the dry wash. He had stayed. His right arm remained bound beneath his shirt, and several days without proper rest had sharpened the lines beside his mouth. "Were you hurt on the road?" he asked. "No, your mare, resting in Winnemucca. A company rider is bringing her." Raphael's shoulders eased. The men, one lost his weapons. His horse kept its legs. He understood what she had not done. She had not killed for speed. "How is the arm?" she asked. "Still attached." That answer was poor the first time. "It pulls, no fever." Louisa wanted to cross the remaining space and touch him. The yard was not ready for that truth. Neither was the case. "Creel found the records," she said. "Seal 714, the unauthorized substitution. The March route alteration." Raphael's face closed around the last fact. Did it prove Toll meant Joel to die? No. Good. The answer hurt, but it was right. Raphael did not ask her to turn uncertainty into vengeance for his sake. Sheriff Rusk called for them to wait until morning. The chest and the witnesses had to be assembled in daylight. Louisa slept little in a room above the store. Before sunrise on June 13th, hoofbeats entered Juniper Wells from the west. The trusted company rider led Louisa's bay mare into the yard. The animal had been rubbed down, watered, and traveled at an easy pace. Her working saddle remained in place. Joel's silver-inlaid spur was still tied to the horn by the same rawhide knot. Louisa checked the mare's legs, the cinch, and the spur before signing the rider's transfer note. Nothing had moved without explanation. By full light, Sheriff Rusk placed the locked strongbox on the freight platform beside the relay yard. Townspeople gathered at a distance, but Rusk allowed only named witnesses inside the rope line. Amos and Cal had ridden in from Ironwood Gate with the third ranch hand. Eli Ward stood beside Baines. Henry Voss carried his inspection papers. Raphael remained near the rear of the platform, unarmed, with Dr. Pritchard watching his color. Abner and Dyer stood apart under deputy guard. Rusk began with the box. He read the account of its discovery beneath the lambing shed floor, the heavy inbound wagon tracks, the lighter outbound tracks, the cut fence, and the empty lawful search 2 days before the planting. Amos and Cal confirmed that Louisa had lifted the board only enough to see the chest. Neither had seen her touch, move, or open it. The third ranch hand confirmed the shed remained guarded until Rusk arrived. Creel then read the Winnemucca register entry for May 23rd. Northbound payroll pouch, seal 714. Rusk displayed the wrapped seal and attached canvas without separating them. Louisa produced Abner's dated commercial offer. "This shows motive and timing," she said. "It does not prove who opened the pouch." Rusk nodded. "The distinction is entered." Baines testified that Dyer had brought the chestnut before sunrise, and that Abner ordered a missing outer heel nail replaced without changing the shoe. Eli confirmed hearing the instruction before anyone knew Louisa had measured the print. The chestnut was walked across damp ground. Its broad left hind plate landed toe-heavy, the outer heel light, with a short drag before lifting. Louisa opened her notebook to the drawing made at Ironwood Gate before the nail was replaced. Voss compared the measurements. Raphael spoke only when Rusk asked him. "That is the horse that followed me." That is the saddle. Can you name the rider? No. Abner seized on the answer. Then this parade proves nothing. It proves the horse, the altered nail, the route assignment, and the planted chest must be considered together, Creel said. He took a company key from his vest and knelt before the strongbox. The brass lock opened. Inside lay sealed payroll packets, stacked and intact. Creel counted them against the manifest. Not one packet was missing. The discovery changed the crime's shape. Whoever planted the chest had not wanted the money. He had wanted ownership of the accusation. Dyer's face lost what little color it had. Rusk placed the May 23rd duty entry before him. Beside it went Bain's testimony, Eli's account, and the record of Dyer trying to leave with wages, food, and a bedroll. You were at West Relay, Rusk said. You took the chestnut to Bain's. You were named by Navarro before Mrs. Haskett ever saw the duty board. Now tell me who ordered the box moved. Dyer looked at Abner. Keep your mouth shut, Abner said. Rusk turned his head. You will not direct this witness. Dyer's hands trembled. Tall ordered the early team change, said the pouch had to come off the regular line. Abner stepped forward. The deputy blocked him. Dyer continued faster. We moved the chest after the sheriff's first search, cut the east fence, drove the remounts out, put the box under the rear floor while the ranch hands chased horses. Who rode after Navarro on May 23rd? Rusk asked. Jeb Pike, relief rider. Toll told him to get the numbered seal back. Did Toll order Pike to shoot? I never heard that. Raphael's jaw tightened, but he did not turn the missing answer into one he preferred. Creel laid the copied route sheet on the platform. Abner lunged for it. His fingers caught the edge and tore one corner before Rusk seized his wrist. Dyer is lying, Abner shouted. All of them are protecting her. Release the paper, Rusk said. Abner tried to wrench free. The deputy forced his other arm behind him. Rusk took the torn sheet from his hand. Abner Toll, you are held for conspiring to remove company property from its route, planting that property at Ironwood Gate, and interfering with this inquiry. He looked toward Dyer. Samuel Dyer, you remain held for your part. Jeb Pike will be sought for the pursuit and shooting of Rafael Navarro. Creel closed the strongbox, turned the company key, and tied cord across both handles. He pressed a wax seal over the knot and entered the resealing in his ledger. Then he wrote a temporary company clearance, stating that Ironwood Gate had cooperated in recovering the payroll and was not under company accusation. Henry Voss took out the postponement he had signed, added a new inspection date, and wrote that the earlier delay no longer reflected the standing of Louisa Haskett's stock. No one cheered. The change appeared where the harm had appeared first, in writing. Sheriff Rusk returned Raphael's unloaded revolver, but kept the cartridges separate until the inquiry was formally closed. You are free to leave this room, he said. You will remain in Humboldt County and appear when summoned. Raphael stepped into the yard. Louisa waited behind the stable where the crowd could not turn the next truth into entertainment. When he found her, he stopped beyond reach. She crossed the distance herself. Her arms went around him, one beneath his left shoulder and one around his back, clear of the injured right arm. Raphael did not close his left arm around her until she pressed fully against him. Then he held her, not tightly enough to trap, firmly enough that she could stop carrying the last 9 days alone. Louisa felt his breath leave against her hair. She remained until relief became a choice rather than a collapse. When she stepped back, Raphael released her at once. The sheriff no longer requires me to stay at Ironwood Gate, he said. No, I owe you truth. I owe the ranch work for what my warning brought to the gate. But I won't use either debt to claim a place. Louisa heard the larger question beneath the words. What will you do? After I give the remaining statements, I'll leave unless you ask me to stay for a reason that belongs to you and me. Louisa found Raphael's saddlebag packed on the morning of June 23rd. It stood beside the tackroom cot with the flap buckled, his spare shirt folded inside, and the last of his dried meat wrapped in cloth. His boots were on. His right arm was no longer bound tight against his body, but he still carried it close when the muscles pulled. The sight of the bag struck harder than the strongbox had. The strongbox had been an enemy's act. This was Raphael keeping his word. When? She asked. He stood beside the open doorway, facing the yard rather than the road. After breakfast, you planned to leave without telling me. I planned to tell you before I saddled. That is not the same as asking whether you should go. Raphael turned. Sheriff Rusk no longer requires me to stay at Ironwood Gate. I have to remain in Humboldt County and appear when summoned. Nothing more. 9 days had passed since the hearing in Juniper Wells. In that time, Western Continental had carried the relocked strongbox and intact payroll east under company guard. Creel's written clearance had reached the ranch by rider. Henry Voss had inspected the mares again and purchased 2 at a fair price for a buyer farther west. Abner Toll remained held while the sheriff and company men sorted each man's part in the route scheme. Samuel Dyer had given 2 more statements. Jeb Pike had not yet been found. Seal 714 and the attached waxed canvas remained together in Sheriff Rusk's custody. The ranch had work again. The danger had begun to acquire proper names. None of it answered the saddlebag. "Where will you go?" Louisa asked. "Juniper Wells first. Rusk may need me. After that I can hire on with a drive south or a freight outfit east. With one good arm, it's improving." "That was not my question. With one good arm, then. I've worked with less. You nearly bled out before reaching my gate." "I remember. Do you?" Her voice sharpened before she could stop it. "Because this looks like the same mistake dressed as independence." Raphael did not reach for the bag. The warning brought trouble here. My silence about Joel brought more. You gave me shelter, work, and a chance to tell the truth. I won't turn that into a claim on your ranch. I did not say you had a claim. No. But a man can accept gratitude so long that it begins to look like belonging. Louisa stepped inside the tack room. Joel's silver-inlaid spur still hung from her saddle horn beneath the eave. The rawhide knot had darkened where her hands had touched it over 14 months. "Is that what you think I have offered you? Gratitude? I think you kissed me because I stayed. I kissed you because you stayed when running would have been easier. That still may be gratitude. Then ask me." Raphael's eyes held hers. "Ask you what?" "What I want." His breath changed. Slightly. "What do you want, Louisa?" No one had asked her that without attaching a price, a warning, or a plan since Joel died. Abner had wanted her spring. Buyers had wanted certainty. Neighbors had wanted grief to become modest and convenient. Raphael had wanted the truth, then believed leaving was the only way not to take more than she chose to give. Louisa moved to the small table and set both hands on its worn edge. "Before I answer, tell me what you would choose if there were no payroll, no wound, no Joel, and no debt between us." Raphael's left hand opened at his side. "You." The word came without decoration. Louisa waited. He understood that one word was not enough. "I would choose your company when there is no danger to justify it," he said. "I would choose the way you read a horse before you read a man's excuses. I would choose being corrected when I try to make sacrifice look noble. I would choose the work here if you paid me fairly, and I would choose leaving if staying required you to owe me anything." His gaze did not leave hers. "I love you." The directness entered the room without shelter. Louisa felt fear rise beside the answer she had already known. Love after loss could feel like betrayal when no one had betrayed anyone. Joel had been her husband. Raphael was not an erasure, and she would not make him prove his worth by competing with a dead man. "Joel will remain part of this house," she said. "I will speak his name. I will not pretend I loved him less because I love again." Raphael nodded. "You shouldn't. There will be days I remember him before I remember you. It means you lived before me." The answer loosened the hardest knot in her. Not because it absolved her, because it asked for no absolution. "I love you too," Louisa said. Raphael closed his eyes once, then opened them. He did not cross the space. He waited for the rest. "I want you to stay," she continued. "Not as repayment, not because you carried a warning, not because you carried the wrong message 14 months ago." Her voice steadied. "I want you here because I choose you." Raphael's shoulders lowered, but caution remained in him. "On what terms?" "Good." Louisa crossed to the office door and took a folded paper from the shelf. She had written it the night before, then hated herself for preparing what she had not yet dared to ask. Paid work with the route horses and remount string. Monthly wage. Bunkhouse room until something else is agreed. No ownership in Ironwood Gate. No unpaid labor counted as courtship. Raphael took the paper in his left hand and read it. And if courtship ends, your employment does not end with it, not unless your work fails. If employment ends, courtship does not become payment. A faint, genuine smile touched his mouth. You have separated every door, so neither of us mistakes one for another. He read farther. 1 year before setting a wedding date. 1 full year. I will not marry you because danger made us certain for a month. And if you decide against it, then I decide against it, freely. The same for me. Louisa met his eyes. The same. Raphael placed the paper on the table. Then I accept the work. Only the work. I accept the courtship too. Separate answer. Yes. The quiet between them held no uncertainty now. It held choice. Louisa went outside and lifted Joel's spur from the saddle horn. The rawhide knot had tightened with dust and weather. She worked it loose with her fingers rather than cutting it. Raphael remained in the tackroom doorway. He did not offer to help. He knew this was not a burden to take from her. When the knot opened, Louisa carried the spur inside. The silver was dulled from years of handling. One point of the rowel remained blunted from the western boundary rock. She raised it above the tackroom doorway and hung it on a square iron nail driven into the beam. There it belonged to the ranch, the work, and the life already lived. It no longer had to travel every mile at her side. Raphael looked up at it. Are you certain? No. Louisa lowered her hand. But I am choosing it. He accepted the difference. The spur had been grief carried on horseback. Then it had become truth held between their hands. Now it rested above a doorway. Neither memory nor love needed to close. Raphael stepped nearer, stopping before his boots crossed the last pace. May I kiss you? Yes. Louisa did not wait for him to bridge the distance. She placed one hand against his left shoulder and rose to meet him. His mouth touched hers with the restraint she had come to trust. But she did not want restraint mistaken for doubt. She drew him closer. Raphael's left arm settled around her waist. His injured right arm remained protected between them, the healed wound still too tender for pressure. The kiss deepened without haste, warmth, breath, and the clean scent of sun-dried cotton. Nothing demanded, nothing taken. Louisa chose the closeness and felt him answer rather than lead it past what she offered. When they separated, his forehead nearly touched hers, but he stopped short enough to let her decide even that. She rested there by choice. A shout came from the east corral. Mrs. Haskett, Amos called, twisted halter on the gray. Raphael released her at once. No sigh, no claim that the moment had been spoiled. Louisa stepped back and looked toward the yard. Can your arm manage a gait? She asked. With the left. Then you may earn your first day's wage. Raphael glanced at the packed saddlebag. Should I unpack first? After the gray. They walked beneath Joel's spur and into the sunlight. At the tackroom steps, Raphael paused. East fence inspection at sunrise tomorrow? Yes. Do you want company? Louisa looked toward the corrals, the repaired routines, and the gate where he had once arrived bleeding with danger behind him. Yes, she said. I do. The letter from Sheriff Rusk reached Ironwood Gate on a cold October morning, just as Louisa and Raphael were deciding whether the mares or the north fence deserved the first hours of daylight. The mail rider handed it down at the gate, accepted a cup of water, and continued east before the dust settled behind him. Louisa recognized Rusk's firm hand on the folded paper. Raphael stood beside her with a halter over his left shoulder. His right arm had healed cleanly, but the first hard chill of autumn had drawn stiffness into the scar. That morning, his fingers had trembled while he fastened a buckle. He had stopped, warmed the hand against his coat, and asked Amos to lift the grain sack instead of pretending strength could be ordered back. 4 months earlier, pride would have made him hide the weakness. Louisa counted the request as another form of keeping his word. She broke the seal on the letter beneath the Ironwood Gate. Mrs. Haskett, Rusk had written. Samuel Dyer has identified Jeb Pike as the relief rider who followed Rafael Navarro on May 23rd. Benjamin Creel found a wage chit and route assignment bearing Pike's name under Toll's authority for that date. Pike was taken west of Winnemucca last week. When shown Dyer's statement in the company record, he admitted he rode the dark chestnut after Navarro to recover Seal 714. He further admitted firing when Navarro refused to stop. Louisa paused. Raphael did not reach for the paper. "Read the rest," he said. She continued. "Pike says Toll ordered the seal recovered. He does not say Toll ordered the shot. We have found no proof that Toll intended Joel Haskett's death at the crossing. Toll remains held while the county and company pursue the charges concerning the payroll, the false route changes, and the planting of company property. Pike is held separately for the pursuit and shooting. Seal 714 and the attached canvas remain together in my custody." Beneath that, Rusk had added in smaller writing that the strongbox and intact payroll were back with Western Continental. Abner's route authority had been removed. Samuel Dyer remained under guard and would testify when called. Louisa lowered the letter. The wind moved through the ironwood branches above them, dry leaves clicking against one another. "He admitted shooting you," she said. "Yes." Raphael's voice held no triumph. "Does that help?" He considered the question. "It puts the act where it belongs." "And Abner?" Rusk wrote what can be proved. Louisa folded the paper along its original crease. "Not what we wish could be, that matters." It did. Joel had not become less dead because a record showed the road had been falsely altered. Raphael had not become innocent of carrying the message because he had later done right. Abner's cruelty did not permit them to name him a murderer without proof. Justice was not the same as completeness. Louisa had learned to live with the difference. Raphael touched the edge of the letter with 2 fingers. "You should file it with the receipt, not with the seal. The seal is still with Rusk." "I know." She gave him the paper to hold while she closed the gate. The leather halter slid from his left shoulder, and he caught it before it fell. His right hand stayed near his coat, protecting the healed arm without apology. Together they crossed the yard to the office. Louisa placed Rusk's letter in the lower drawer beside his handwritten receipt. Raphael's old statement remained in its separate compartment. Abner's declined offer remained in the contract file. The hoof-pattern notebook lay on the desk, its pages worn from use at the hearing. Every object had reached a proper place. None had to carry more meaning than the truth allowed. Through the open office door, the ranch showed its recovery in modest pieces. The east fence had been repaired with new posts where the wire had been cut. The lambing shed floor had been lifted after the county released it, then laid straight again with fresh boards beneath the rear wall. Western Continental had granted Ironwood Gate a fair seasonal remount contract under revised terms. Henry Voss's corrected inspection had led to 2 horse sales at honest prices. The feed shed roof still leaked near the northern corner, and Louisa had decided it would wait until spring. The ranch was safe enough to plan, not rich enough to forget caution. Joel's silver-inlaid spur hung above the tackroom doorway, where morning light sometimes caught the worn rowel. Louisa no longer reached for it before every ride. She still saw it each time she passed beneath. Memory had become part of the structure, rather than a weight tied to her saddle. Outside, Amos called that the gray mare had thrown a shoe. Cal answered from the corral. Work resumed around the news because work did not stop, merely because justice had taken another step. Raphael leaned against the office doorframe. "North fence first," he said. "The lower post was loose yesterday. Mares first. The fence will be harder to set after the ground warms. The buyer comes Friday. The mares will still be mares. Afternoon." Louisa took her gloves from the desk. "And the fence will still be crooked." "That is an argument against delay." "No, it is an argument against bad work." Raphael's mouth curved. "You intend to win this by being the owner. I intend to win because I am right." That, too. He did not take the gloves from her or decide the order himself. He waited. Louisa considered the sky, the distance to the north line, and the cloud of breath rising over the mare pen. "We inspect the mares first, then the fence." "All right." The ready agreement did not feel like surrender. It felt like a man who had asked and received an answer. They walked to the tack room beneath Joel's spur. Raphael reached past her for his coat, then stopped when the scar in his right arm tightened. Louisa saw the small change in his breathing. "Too cold?" she asked. "A little. You could stay with the Ledgers." "I could." He did not add that he would rather ride. Louisa stepped closer and settled the wool scarf more securely around his neck. Her fingers brushed the warm skin beneath his jaw. Raphael bent and kissed her temple. The gesture was familiar now, gentle enough to belong to an ordinary morning. Louisa caught the front of his coat before he moved away. That was insufficient. Was it, severely? She drew him back and kissed his mouth. Raphael answered without hurry, his left hand resting at her waist. He did not press the injured arm between them. When Louisa eased away, he let her choose the distance. "Better?" he asked. "Acceptable. Your approval remains severe. It keeps you useful. Then I will strive for higher marks." He handed her reins to her bay mare and took the gray gelding for himself. They led both horses toward the gate. 4 months earlier, Raphael had crossed between those ironwood posts, bleeding, armed, and unknown, carrying a warning that could have destroyed Louisa's ranch. Now he stopped before opening the chain. "Your ranch," he said. The words held no claim. Louisa looked back at the corrals, the repaired fence, the office where proof rested, and the doorway where Joel's spur caught the light. Then she looked at Raphael. "Our work." He lifted the chain with his left hand. Louisa opened the gate. They mounted and rode out side by side, first toward the mares and then toward the north fence. Behind them, the gate remained open for Amos and Cal. Ahead, the ground held the first dampness of the season. 2 sets of hoofprints formed beside each other in the dark soil, parallel and distinct, continuing in the same direction.